Hello. Welcome in to Press Play Action here on Jersey Nerds Productions. If you clicked on this, you're probably like, okay, I understood reviewing Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2 together. I understood reviewing The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile together. Maybe you didn't at first, but once you kind of explained it a little bit, you could kind of get with it. What the hell are these two doing together? The French Connection and Little Man Brandon Tew. What are these two doing together? What possible connection, French or otherwise, could these two movies have?
Absolutely nothing.
And the answer to that question is not a damn thing.
Yeah,
These were just two
this is
movies that were
completely
picked randomly
random.
because we have a list of over 4,000, and if we try to overthink this, we'll have plenty of movies grouped together. There's time for that, but there's also, it's kind of why Brandon has his letterbox set to movies at random, because this is as random as it gets. We're going to talk about a movie that won Best Picture, and then we're going to talk about a movie where Marlon Wayans pretends to play a little person pretending to be a baby. So
Yeah, just
that's.
yeah. I mean, let's get. Do you want to go with Little Man or the Best Picture nomination
I want to
first?
start with The French Connection,
Okay.
because I feel like I'm going to have a lot less to say about it, which sounds weird. I think that we're going to be split. I'm going to have to lean on you a lot for The French Connection, and then Little Man, I will happily say my piece with, whatever I think about that movie, good or bad. So let's go ahead and dive in to The French Connection. This movie came out October 7th, 1971. So 53 years ago, Brandon. Long time. But this is a Best Picture winner. Won Best Picture at the 44th Academy Awards in 1972 for the 1971 year. It won Best Picture, Best Actor for Gene Hackman, Best Director, Best Film Editing, and Best Adapted Screenplay. And Roy Scheider also was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for his role as Detective Russo. And directed by William Friedkin, by the way, who would go on to make such movies as the Exorcist is kind of the one that he's known for maybe the most.
Yeah,
It's either The Exorcist or The French Connection that William Friedkin
I
for.
know him from The Exorcist, but yeah, that
Maybe a
makes
movie called I think it's called Sorcerer as well. That's pretty well known that he did.
Isn't that
But
like a cult classic, The Sorcerer, or like a?
I haven't seen it, but it's on the list, so
Yeah,
maybe we'll
yeah.
get a chance to watch it down the line. But this one is considered to be a neo noir action thriller, and it's based on a book that came out about 2 years prior. So they really sped, especially for the 70s, they really sped run the whole book to movie adaptation of this. And I will just say, first of all, I really like Gene Hackman. As someone that's a big fan of Crimson Tide, I don't know. Have you seen Crimson Tide, Brandon?
I haven't, but Roll Tide, No,
No, that's not
no,
that's
not the
not
same.
not
No,
what that is, and that might be one that has to get
yeah, that's
past
probably
the
needs to get
randomizer
on the
up the board a
list.
little bit. Crimson
Yeah.
Tide is one of the most tense movies I've ever seen, and it's Denzel Washington basically going up against Gene Hackman. I
Okay.
love Gene Hackman so much, and this is maybe the movie that he's most well known for, apart from playing Lex Luthor in the Superman movies
Hmm.
back in the 70s and 80s. He plays Popeye Doyle, who's this detective, and he is trying to catch this guy that has this what is it, a heroin ring, or just
I believe it's heroin, but
I don't know if it's
doesn't make
it
it
might
that
be
clear in the movie, to be honest.
and that's kind of the thing. Okay, so it's a detective movie, and it's about this guy that's trying to bust this drug ring, and they're French, hence the name French Connection. Um, and one of the guys involved is a little bit more famous, so he's kind of got access to a few other things that a lot of the low life people that he might go after don't necessarily have access to. Um, and it's about him It's a cop movie. It's him trying to work through all the people at work saying, "Ah, you're chasing you're chasing ghosts around here, Popeye," and people eluding him, and the the chase in New York City. And before I get to my overall thoughts about the movie, I will say if you do watch this, the one takeaway that I had more than anything is there were some really good chase scenes in this movie. I think that this movie, if anything else, kind of, I don't know if it set the bar because I haven't seen enough 50s and 60s action movies or early 70s action movies to really say whether it set the bar or not. But especially for that time, it's action scenes with a lot of movement to them and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
tension.
Yeah.
And the chase scenes in this, and there are quite a few. Uh, there, especially car chases, where good lord, Gene Hackman's character cannot drive in this movie. Uh,
There's more saying it's like Grand Theft Auto. You just
yeah,
destroy the car. He doesn't care.
he's
Just
like,
get
I don't
over it.
give a damn about property. I'll try not to hit people, but we'll see.
I'm laying on the horn. It's their fault. I gotta get out of the way. Oh, look.
Exactly, yeah. If you hear the horn, that means that's your 2 second warning. That's more than enough time for you to move, right? The action in this movie I thought was really well done and really ramped up the tension as well as really made you care about hey, let's get this person. Especially there's one foot
Right.
trace or one foot chase uh near a train that I thought
Yep.
was really fun.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I thought the scenes where there was a ton of action were absolutely the best parts, and you'd be like, oh yeah, like an action movie, the action scenes would be the best. But like all the filler and all like the other scenes and the getting to the action. I mean, I could take it or leave it. Like Gene Hackman's great. He's good. Like he's in some of my favorite sports movies. Like The Replacements is awesome.
I've yet to
Hoosiers
see that one, but
Hoosiers awesome. Like
that's
I
a
mean,
classic.
yeah, I mean he's in a bunch of like movies that I just love. And not even like those, but just in general. Like Gene Hackman is a very good actor. But I just felt like this movie to me, I get the Best Picture nomination. I don't know about winning Best Picture, and I didn't see all the movies in '71. But to me, it didn't feel like a Best Picture type movie. It more felt like a really, really good action movie with some really good scenes, sprinkled in between. But for the most part, it's about the action scenes. And to me, the rest of the movie is kind of like it is what it is. I do think the characters are like interesting and funny and a little bit unique, some of them. But for the most part, for me, like this isn't even Gene Hackman at his best for me. In just some of the movies I've seen, like I remember seeing the Enemy of the State and being like Gene Hackman's really good. Like yeah, so that was like my introduction to Gene Hackman outside of Hoosiers, and I'm like, wow, this guy should do more like drama, more action stuff, and clearly he was doing it way before that movie ever came out in the '70s with like a movie like this, The French Connection. So yeah, I mean you said that the other detective got like a supporting nomination, which I get, like also very good. But yeah, I love the action scenes. The action scenes are what does it for me. And honestly, I'm gonna talk about cinematography for a little bit because I love cinematography. I think it's like awesome the way people decide to shoot things and decide to set things up. The wide shots to then zoom on a lot of a lot of this movie is very unique and very interesting, and I'm all for that. I'm thinking of like a couple of scenes where it's like a wide shot where Gene Hackman's character as the detective is like trailing, someone else and kind of listening to conversations, and then you just see him in the background and it like zooms in on his face. You're like, oh, there's Gene Hackman's character. Like there's Popeye Doyle. Like he's there in the background, like zooming in on him. So like that was probably my favorite like cinematography moments is a lot of the wide shots and a lot of like the zoom in camera style. And I don't know if that's like a '70s thing, but it was very cool to like see the kind of zoom in nature. I don't know how you felt about those type of decisions.
Well, I did really like the cinematography on this, and it's from Owen Roisman, who passed away last year at the age of 86. And he was a pretty prominent cinematographer. He's got a lot of movies in the 70s and 80s that are on the list of stuff to watch. French Connection, The Exorcist,
Hmm.
Network, Tootsie, Wyatt Earp, The Heartbreak Kid, 3 Days of the Condor, Absence of Malice, and the 1991 Adams Family movie. So he
Okay, yeah, that
definitely
makes
has
sense.
a lengthy history of good work, and I agree. And I think that without that cinematography, the action scenes would not have the intensity that they do. I find myself, as I'm going to find myself for a lot of the time we talk about movies, which hopefully is decades and decades and decades,
Yeah.
but agreeing with you where I liked the action always brought me back in, and I liked watching Gene Hackman, but a lot of it seemed just very procedural. And there's also a chance that someone that's listening to this that loves 70s movies and grew up with 70s movies, uh, and I'm sorry that we're the ones that you're stuck listening to about one of your all-time favorite movies, because I guarantee there's people out here that think The French Connection is an all-time classic and something that they love.
Yeah.
And I think that if maybe if you were growing up with something like this, or you were seeing movies, this might have been something that a lot of other movies took what that did and
Mm,
built off of it
I could see that. Yeah.
in a way that it's not as exciting to us, because we've seen
Yeah.
what action can. I
In
mean,
the
we're in the John
2010, yeah,
Yeah,
like yeah.
we're in the John Wick, Mission Impossible, Mad Max, Fury Road era of action movies, where we are doing things that have never been done before and are just
Right.
absolutely incredible. And even, uh, a decade after this, with something like Raiders of the Lost Ark, kind of
Yeah,
again
I kind of
building
want to go
off of.
back and rewatch those movies and see if like they did take some stuff from the French Connection, because this movie winning a Best Picture, obviously people thought highly of it, and I wonder if other filmmakers and other like cinematographers kind of took some of those shots, some of those zoomed in shots, some of those wide shots that you get of the car chases. I mean, honestly, one of the scenes with the car chase where the camera's kind of at the front of the car, at the bumper, like that to me was actually a really cool shot. And they did that a couple of times, and I was like, this is like really cool. Like I don't know if I've actually seen this a whole lot in movies, and I thought it was a little bit different. And you are correct that Popeye Doyle cannot drive whatsoever, but it kind of makes the scene a little bit more fun. Kind of seeing it from the bumper view on the front of the car sometimes. So I wonder how much it influenced other action films, because I kind of get that vibe. Just thinking about some other action films that I really, really love, probably taking some stuff from The French Connection and just some of those like ways to build tension, as you were saying. Like that's really what this movie does really well, is it builds a lot of tension. But getting to that tension, like I take it or leave it for me personally.
I also thought, and I think we'll talk about stuff, but our spoiler section for these two movies is going to be a lot less essential, and going to be a bit of a shorter
Yeah,
episode
yeah,
than last week when we were talking about two movies that have such cultural significance. And again, I'm sure that this did at the time, and it's kind of faded. And I hate talking about it like that, because I bet that for the early 70s, and the movies in the early 70s, mid 70s, 80s do a really good job of showing when they want you to feel like a city is just riddled with crime and dirty and nasty, and the
yeah,
people that are in charge have to either meet that level, exceed that level, or they're just already at that level and the lines are blurred. these movies do a fantastic job of immersing you in that. And that's something that I feel like a lot of movies today kind of gloss over that kind of thing, and they don't make it look quite as down and dirty. I think that one movie recently that actually did a pretty good job of that is the Batman. I think the
Hmm.
Batman did a really good job of showing you a place that just makes it look like someone like Batman would have to exist. So you got to meet them at their level, because things are just that dirty and grimy right now. And the French Connection, like a lot of movies in that time, did a fantastic job of putting you in that space of New York City when
Yeah,
it,
I
it's
mean,
never been a clean place, but
yeah,
there's levels to this. And New York City in the 60s and 70s was a different animal.
yeah, exactly. And part of me really likes actually the French part of it. Like the first shot of Versailles is interesting. Like it's a wide shot of like the coast of Versailles, I guess. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, as the movie goes on, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, you're kind of thrown into, the dirty 70s New York, 60s New York. And it's just like a stark contrast to like what you get in like the opening shot where it's like, oh, look at this beautiful like French coastline, French city, and then it's like, and here's nasty, grimy New York, and like that's
Yeah.
what I kind of like about it. So yeah, I really enjoyed like the shots and the way stuff was set up. And now that I'm thinking about it, like you brought up the Batman, like the chase scene in Batman, in the Batman kind of uses like the close up footage from like the window, from like the windshield or like the front of the car, like at one point, and like that to me like seems like there's kind of a little bit of a crossover there in terms of that. So like I really like the action shots. I think the action shots don't feel like they're shot in the 70s. They feel like they're shot like later on, and they're what make the movie to me. And I think the ending, like we can get into the ending. It kind of abruptly ends for me, but
I thank you.
yeah,
Oh my god, we agree
yeah,
on so much. That ending was just
it's
like,
so
oh, I guess the movie's dumb now.
right.
All right,
And
I
that's why I was like, is the French
we're
Connection too like gonna explain the ending of the French Connection? Like, what are we getting with this?
and
But
there is a French Connection too, and I hadn't planned on watching it because it definitely didn't do as well in theaters. It didn't get any awards recognition. It isn't directed
seems
by the
weird,
same
right?
guy. It still stars Gene Hackman,
So
but
they have this Best Picture winner, and then they're like, let's make a sequel, and it doesn't have the same director. It doesn't have the same like impact. Like, what went on with that? Like, that's where I'm
it's
like confused by it.
it's not that one was based on a book. This one is just what if we made sequels to a sequel to the movie? It's not based on anything like the book.
Okay, yeah.
It's based on
What if
the
we
movie.
expand it? Yeah, yeah. What if we
Yeah,
expand it? Yeah,
and that one,
I don't know.
that
That's
one,
we're talking about books and adaptations. I'm kind of hoping they stick, right to the script with Dune and Dune Messiah and all the other Dune books they might be doing, because we can get some cool stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, like, yeah, I just really like the characters in some aspect. Like Roy Scheider, like I totally get him getting a nomination. Like him as Buddy Russo was really good. Um, Tony Lo Bianco as Sal Boca, like that was a very good character for me. But some of the dialogue, some of the other stuff, kind of like weighed it down for me. But when it got to certain action parts and when it got to certain parts of the movie, like when Popeye just like comes busting into I guess it's a bar is the best way to put it, right? He's just busting in a bar. He's like, okay, Popeye's here. Like everyone, get your hands up, get against the wall. Like that was probably one of the better scenes. And it's just Gene Hackman kind of being a vile, disgusting like New York cop slash detective. And I kind of dug it a little bit. Like yeah, that scene was a little like raunchy and a little like out there in terms of like, okay, maybe like you wouldn't have someone do that in 2024, but I don't know. To me, it seemed like when you were talking about blurring the lines, or how you get the detective up to the level of the city, I feel like that was one of the perfect scenes where it was like kind of got him up to like the level of what he was dealing with. And it was very unique and very interesting. I don't think I've seen that in a lot of movies. Like, movies taking that risk and being like, yeah, let's go there. Like, let's make Gene Hackman's character Popeye Doyle like a little bit of like, I don't know what the best way to put it. A little bit grimy, a little bit nasty. Like, let's put him in that kind of headspace. And yeah, I really enjoyed certain parts, but then other parts is just like drug a little bit. So, and then like we were saying earlier, like the abrupt ending is just really weird. But yeah, we can get into that with spoilers. But I don't know if you want to go ahead and give your grade. I'm kind of interested in what your grade is, because I think we're going to be in around the same ballpark in terms of grades.
Before I get into my grade, there was a debate that happened with this movie over the summer that I think it was on Disney Plus, maybe in other countries, maybe
Interesting.
Hulu in this one, where they actually removed. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie, and I think it's kind of what you were alluding to just a second ago, where Popeye is in a bar full of black people and he's interrogating them, and it's definitely
Yeah, it
not
crosses some
something.
lines.
It,
Yeah.
it, oh, it definitely does, but uh, there's definitely a lot of derogatory language used
Oh
towards
yeah.
black people in that
Yeah.
scene,
I'm.
and
Yeah.
there was a 6 second part of it that was removed
Oh, okay. That
from
makes sense.
either Disney Plus or Hulu. I think
But it's in
Hulu here,
Max.
Disney Plus. I don't know.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
thing. I'm not 100% sure, but that was a big debate about, and why a lot of people were saying this is why I prefer physical media, because physical media, they can't go in, take scenes out, alter it because something aged badly or whatever the case may be. You just get to
Yeah,
see the movie as it was released at the time.
I
And
completely
while
understand that
while I'm
standpoint.
all for like not, not being racist and all of that, yes, absolutely, be kind to everybody. But when it comes to a work of like a work of art, a movie, a song, whatever the case may be, I think that it should be presented in its original context, and
Or
that
with a note or something like that. Yeah, just like this is
something before the movie,
right.
after the movie,
Now,
on the caption that explains what the movie is, fine. But I don't like that, and that does make me
I
come
feel
back
you.
to my whole like physical media. Get in while you can.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, if it's the scene that we're both thinking it is, and I think it is the one that you're talking about, I wonder if like taking out 6 seconds of audio like really matters, because
Well, I
some
mean, yeah,
some of the
that's
derogatory language was like very like crossing the line, and I was like, okay, like could you go farther than this? And like they probably did, now that I'm thinking about it. But at the end of the day, like I also get they're trying to depict like 1960s New York, 1970s New York, and it's a lot different than nowadays. And that's kind of what I was saying with like 2024. Like I don't think you would do that in 2024, but in 1970, like I'm okay with like a movie showing that, as long as like we understand like the cultural like, or just the difference. And like in some aspects, depending on what they took out, I'm fine with that being changed, I guess. But I totally understand your point of view in that, like, I don't like stuff being altered a lot of the time, but it depends on what it is. To be quite honest with you,
yeah, and
yeah,
I'll definitely agree with you about the whole 6 seconds doesn't really change a whole lot, but it's more of people saying like, if we don't say something about this 6 seconds, then who knows where it'll lead to, where it'll
right.
stop, and
I
that kind of
almost
thing.
would want them to like acknowledge that the 6 seconds got taken out, and there's a reason why it was taken out.
Yeah, I
Like
just want
yeah,
them. I'd just rather people say something about it so that people know that like, let's just not do that. But
yeah. Well, that too. I mean, I get both sides of it. If it's the scene that I think we think it is, I mean, there's a reason I like that scene a little bit. Is just because it's Gene Hackman like really laying the hammer down as a detective, but it's also like, that kind of made me cringe a little bit, like the way it made me feel. So, and I'm okay with media like making me feel that way. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's gonna be plenty of times throughout the course of watching movies where, we might see something in like 2007 that seemed like it was okay then, and like you see it now and you're like, okay, that was a little bit over the line, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you like acknowledge like why it's over the line and why it like should exist or shouldn't exist. I guess is kind of my thing with it.
I'm going to change my rating of this movie to an A plus because I just received some new information. This is the type of stuff that you learn here. Alvin C. Copeland Sr. opens Chicken on the Run in the New Orleans suburb of Arabi, serving traditional Southern fried chicken. After several months of lackluster performance, he reopens the restaurant as Popeyes after Popeye Doyle of French Connection.
Oh, that's amazing.
And
Oh
so
god.
that is where the name Popeyes comes from.
He got us the restaurant Popeyes. I'm all
So
for
this
it.
movie is an A plus. It's my favorite movie of all time, and I'll watch it hand in hand with my chicken sandwich. Uh, yeah, no, that was just a fun piece of information that I just found in the C. Also,
Yeah,
crime
that's
films, a list of American films, Popeyes, Louisiana Kitchen.
yeah, that's an interesting one. It kind of makes sense, like Popeye. Uh, Jimmy Doyle, like eh, Jimmy Doyle doesn't quite hit the same way as Popeye Doyle, does it? It doesn't quite
Yeah, I
hit.
know. Glad they didn't call it Jimmy's or Doyle's. Popeyes. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm giving this a B plus. It's a movie
Nice.
that I do really like. I enjoy watching it. I don't know how much I'll come back to it because it does feel very procedural, and a lot of the non-action stuff does just kind of drag a little bit. And you hit the nail on the head. This movie ends and it's just like, oh, all right, I guess we're done. Sure, all right, I'm leaving now. So I gave this a B plus, 62.18%. So
Okay.
right in the middle.
Yeah, that's pretty good B plus. A little bit higher than average or a little bit higher than middle, but that's good. Yeah, I'm also giving it a B plus. 3.5 stars. For me, it's an 87.8% B plus, so a little bit
Okay.
higher. But yeah, I really like the action scenes, and like I said, like yes, it ends abruptly, and the ending they do not stick the landing. Let's just put it that way. They do not stick it whatsoever.
I
Uh,
think that there was a way that they could have, and
right.
they just ended it really abruptly. It's like they were in fear of that whole like, well, it's done, and let's do this, this, and this, and have it wrap up with unnecessary, just kind of like syrupy sweet ending. And they're just like, nope, cut to
Let's just cut. Like
let's just
I
cut
wonder if it's
to
like a
this is what
budget
this
thing.
person's doing
They were
now.
like, we didn't have enough film. Like, let's just cut. Like, we're just done. But I mean, at the end of the day, the action scenes are awesome, and I'm with you. I kind of like the feel of, they blur the lines a little bit or honestly, he steps over the line. Popeye Doyle in terms of okay, New York City's grimy. It's a little bit nasty. Like Popeye Doyle, he ain't messing around. He's also a little bit nasty. He's gonna get in there, get a little bit trashy, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, I like that aspect of the movie. And Gene Hackman is good as ever. Like Gene Hackman is not his best performance, but not his apex mountain, you would say, but very good, very good.
Now, would you like to know what it beat for Best Picture? Because
I kind of want to know now.
one of these is going to stand out as like that's the one that should have won. But you have to
Right.
keep in mind who made it and how his movies tend to age. All right, so we've got Fiddler on the Roof,
I feel like
the
that should have
last
won.
pick, the Last Picture Show,
Okay.
Nicholas and Alexandra, and A Clockwork Orange. And A Clockwork Orange is the one that has definitely the most cultural impact of
Yeah.
any of the movies on that list. However, a lot of Stanley Kubrick's movies were so out there that they weren't really recognized. I mean, this got a
Till
Best Picture
later.
and Director nomination, but they weren't really appreciated as
Hmm.
much until years after they came out. I mean, this was his first movie. I think this was his first movie after 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that was one of his like movies that it took a little bit to get the recognition that it truly deserved. Yeah, right after 2001: A Space Odyssey, he made A Clockwork Orange. That was his next
Interesting.
movie. So
Um, to be honest with you, I haven't seen A Clockwork Orange actually,
I have not either. That's on the
and
list, and we will
I
get to
need
it.
to rewatch 2001: A Space Odyssey because that movie is, I think,
That
one of
movie's
the
a
better
trip.
ones. Yeah, that
Yeah.
movie's awesome. Fiddler on the Roof. I'm gonna give a shout out real quick. BYU TV played it like 4 months ago or something. Shout out to the Mormons. Um, yeah, very good movie.
Shout out to the Mormons. All right.
Very good movie. I
Sure.
mean, very good, very good. Uh, if that had won Best Picture, I wouldn't have been upset. All I'm saying.
Well,
Probably would have gave it a little higher of a grade than
you were
than
also
Prince
negative
Valiant.
22 years old when this movie came out, so
Well,
sure you would not have been upset. You
well,
weren't even close to being alive.
The Fiddler on the Roof, I think, is one of the better musical adaptations. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure we'll get to it at some point if we
Yeah,
get
it's on the list.
to it.
So,
That's words we love to hear, Mitchell. That's words we love to hear.
all right. Well, speaking of words we love to hear, let's review a Marlon Wayans movie. Just kidding.
Okay, I mean,
No one wants to hear those words. But hey, maybe this one's a little different. This is
let's
this
talk about
let's
yourself.
let's dig into the next movie. Man, you don't know. You have no idea what I think about this.
Right.
It's Little Man, directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans, written by Keenan Ivory Wayans, Sean Wayans, and Marlon Wayans. That this is apparently how this family likes to spend their time together. Starring Marlon Wayans, Sean Wayans, Kerry Washington, John Witherspoon, Tracy Morgan, a bunch of other people, and was released in July of 2006. This movie came out the week after Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest, which was all the rage in 2006, and came out 2 weeks after the double feature of The Devil Wears Prada and Superman Returns. So it definitely came into a very theatrically crowded marketplace.
So I'm assuming it didn't do so well, or did it?
Well, here's the thing: this movie opened up pretty well. I'm pulling up the box office mojo
You think
right
word of
now.
mouth got back and people were like, "Yeah, I don't know about this."
Word of mouth. What do you mean? What are you talking
That's
about?
what
Okay, so this movie,
you
this
said. Opening was pretty good, but after that, it was eh. Maybe word of mouth got around. Like, no, we're good with this one. We don't need to go see it.
this movie came out, or this movie opened to $21 million,
Okay.
and it made 58 million, which means it didn't have the worst legs ever, but it definitely didn't have good legs.
Mm,
Um, And the only reason why we're really reviewing it is because it opened above that $20 million mark.
no, makes sense.
That's kind of a benchmark that I have for movies of a certain time getting onto this list, because it meant that these people were going out to see it. This movie cost $64 million. $64 million. I bet a lot of that just went to the effect of
64.
64. This movie
What
costs. This
was
movie
60
cost
million of it to like
This movie cost about double of District 9. This same studio would make
of
District
District
9 3
Nine?
years later, and that cost like 32 million.
What the what? 60 million of it went to like the candy they gave the baby. Like what? Like what are
No,
we
it probably
doing?
went towards the effect of
Of just
Marlon
making him
Wayans.
a baby?
Yeah, and this made 104 million worldwide, so it didn't do
Guess it made
particularly
money.
well.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a profit, right? I mean, that's a tight profit if we're getting any out of there. But yeah, that's kind of wild. 64 million. That throws me
Yeah,
for a loop. Wow.
this movie
Uh,
is fucking terrible.
yeah, just say it. I
I'm
don't
not.
care.
I'm not gonna mince my words. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be like, oh, maybe the movie about Marlon Wayans pretending to be a baby, pretending to be a little person is actually good. Because no, this movie, this is horrible. This is, and you got to talk about some of these. Like I said in one of our earlier reviews, We're not here to just talk about the movies we love. We're not just here to talk about the movies we hate. We're here to talk about both of those and everything in between. But this one definitely falls on the awful end of the spectrum. This is about Marlon Wayans, who plays a little person who is a jewel thief, and he's in prison. And once he gets released from prison, he meets up with Tracy Morgan, stupid ass, running around, and immediately they try to steal the Queen's Diamond, which, okay, yeah, the Queen's Diamond is located in just some jewelry store downtown. Cool, yeah, that makes sense. Uh, but they go and they steal this thing, and immediately they get into some trouble. They get jammed up, and Marlon Wayans puts the jewel in Kerry Washington's purse. Yes, Kerry Washington of Scandal and Django Unchained, and a woman who has proven to be a pretty decent actress in other things that are not fucking Little Man. Has she has a purse? They stash it in the purse, and they think, all right, well, we put this in the purse just so we could get out of trouble. And so now, what do you have to do to get that back? Instead of just simply breaking into the home, just like they were planning to do at the jewelry store, they think, we're going to leave Marlon Wayans dressed up as a baby on the front porch, and they're just going to adopt this Frankenstein ass look. At the effect of this is horrible.
That's
It's so
probably the
bad.
worst. That's the worst part. Is if they spent $30 million on the effect, why even do it?
Where did
Like,
it? They ran off with your money. The
yeah,
effects team said, "Screw it. We are getting the filet mignon for everyone. You know, we're getting the most expensive lunches possible. Yeah, I want 16 crabs. Like they ran off with the money because the effect on this is not, it's
I
disgusting.
can't. It's
It's
just
and they do discuss it in the movie because a lot of the characters mention how ugly this thing looks. But
he's a full grown man.
yeah, but like he's got a tattoo. And they're like, "Oh, who would tattoo this baby?" And
His knife scar, where they're like, oh, he must have got his appendix removed. I can't take this serious. Actually, the best line in the whole movie is when they take off his diaper originally, and they go, "Oh, he must be a porn star. That ain't a baby." It's like, what
oh,
is
you
going
you thought
on?
that was funny.
No, I thought it was funny in the sense of like, why would you even make that joke like that? Like that's
Oh, so
not
it's
funny.
funny in like a not
Yeah,
funny way. I
yeah, it's
gotcha.
like funny in like a not funny way.
Sure.
I mean, I just don't understand it.
I
I
will I will I will before I go too deep into the negative, because let me tell you, there's a long way down. I will say the one positive thing about this movie. Actually, there's two. I have two positive things. The first one is John Witherspoon. I thought he was good. I thought he was funny. Rest in
uh,
peace.
the
If you've
dad
seen if you've seen
pops.
Friday, he plays the grandpa. If you've seen Friday, you know John Witherspoon. He's really funny.
Yeah,
I thought he was funny, basically playing the one guy that's like, "I'm on to you, bitch. No, I know you're 35. No,
I
I'm
know
not
you're a
buying this at
man.
all. Yeah, no, I'm not buying this. You're too stupid looking. No." But they think he's
So
crazy, and so they like try to send him to like mental care facilities because they think that he's crazy for thinking that this clearly 35-year-old little person is not in fact a baby.
right, yeah. It just it borders on like offensive at like how bad the
We
plot is.
will get to offensive because this movie just, I mean, it's bad without that, but some of the stuff that this does is just shocking. And
Right,
the other second thing that I thought was funny is there's no reason for them to have a football scene in this movie, but one of the dads gets so aggressively into the football game and just starts like trucking babies. that I did actually think that that was kind of funny, and like I would,
I actually
uh,
thought that was funny too.
I
I
would,
was
I
like,
would
that's pretty
laugh,
good.
I would laugh at it, and every time I laughed at it, I wanted to like punch myself in the face, like, really,
Be like,
you're
oh,
laughing,
you're
you're
giving in
laughing
to the
at this.
Waynes. You're giving in to
Wow,
them.
I'm
Stop,
losing
stop.
IQ points as we speak. Just
So, yeah, I mean, I think the question has to be asked: Is
what
this
question is this?
just
What
how the
question is
Waynes?
this?
Is this just how they get down? Is this like what they think is funny? Like
Okay,
I'm
so
genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious.
we have other Marlon Wayans movies on the list. I mean, we have the Scary Movie and Scary Movie 2. White Chicks is up there. The
White Chicks is
Haunted
a good
House,
movie.
the Haunted House movies, 50 Shades of Black, Sex Tuplets. Uh, we have other Marlon Wayans comedies on the list, but the bar has been set low because,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if Marlon Wayans is the worst one in this movie because Sean Wayans, every time Marlon Wayans is bad, Sean Wayans comes in and is just like,
Says
"Oh,
hold my beer.
you thought that was bad. Oh, I'm about to go fart in a bathtub with a little kid." That there's a scene where because Sean Wayans is part of this couple with Kerry Washington, and he really wants a kid, but Kerry Washington's not really sure if she's ready to have a kid just yet. And Sean Wayans is like, I really want to be a
Vanessa.
dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he really takes it upon himself to be a dad. And the entire movie, Sean Wayans
Oh
goes
my
and
gosh.
shows. I mean, the movie tries to play it off as sweet, but the entire movie they show that they are not ready in any capacity to be parents because Sean Wayans is like, yeah, let me get and fart in the bathtub and let's play Snatch the Marbles, which I don't even want to get into what that game could possibly be with a small child. I in a bathtub. Pass. I'm gonna pass on that one, Brandon. I don't know about you, but
No,
that was a
no.
scene. That was a scene where I'm just like,
We'll
hmm.
move past that one.
I don't know
Yeah.
about that. And the whole like, oh, we got to insert the thermometer in his ass is just so we can get like a shot of Marlon Wayans like reacting to it when in fact you can totally put a thermometer just in the armpit of a baby.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
It's
I'm
all
with you.
for the
I
effect. They
just
have to have him violently shit just so he can make weird faces.
by
It's one of
taking
those type of
laxatives.
movies.
By taking laxatives.
Yeah, any movie where someone has to take a laxative, like 99% of the time, it's not going to be funny.
Right, right.
It's not going to be funny.
Now accidental laxatives. Eh, good work.
Even
Good
then,
work.
because most of the time, movies are doing that just to set up for an easy poop joke.
Right,
Just an
right.
easy thing. And that's just not funny to me because it's just like, oh, well, it's gross. It's funny, right? No,
Well,
it's stupid.
now it makes sense that like all three of them wrote it together. Basically, I don't know who wants to put their hand up and take sole credit of the writing responsibility. But I guess this is just their comedy, which I mean, obviously
This
people went to go see it. I mean, that's the crazy thing is people obviously went to go see it. So before
this
this
was
movie,
Keenan Ivory
what did the
Wayans.
Waynes
Well, they
what
did
did
the
the
show
Wayans
in
do?
living color. Keenan Ivory Wayans did the show in living color. He
Yeah, yeah.
also did I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, which is
That sounds like a really cool title.
yeah, it's one of their parody movies. It's Scary Movie 2, and White
Okay.
Chicks. And Little Man was the last movie Keenan Ivory Wayans directed. I'm assuming because someone threw so many tomatoes at him after this movie came out that he just said, "I'm done. I'm not doing anything ever again." Sean Wayans, let's see what he's done because I really think that he is the worst one in this movie. I think that he is
I mean,
atrocious.
the the
This
worst part
was
is its Metascore on IMDb is 26.
that's too high.
26 should be like 8.
Sean
Sorry
Wayans
if I'm
was
giving away my
in
grade. Like,
Sean
what
Wayans was
bad?
in Dance Flick, which was a parody movie that came out in 2009 about dance movies like Hairspray and Save the Last
Yeah.
Dance and Step Up on the list, but I haven't seen it. And he was never in a movie after that. and his career has kind of, at least his film career and television, I don't really see him doing a whole lot on that either. It really fell off after Little Man, and I can definitely imagine why. However, Marlon's career really took off, or I don't even know if took off is the right word, but it continued in a big way. I mean, he followed this up with
Yeah.
Norbit, so it clearly he had a role in Norbit, which showed that he wasn't done making movies that are a blight on humanity. And then he was in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra in
I just don't
2009.
think you like Marlon Wayans, which is fine, but
I don't like Marlon Wayans, but he was in okay, but he was in Air, and he was only in Air for like a minute.
he was
But I really liked
very
him in
good.
Air.
Very good in
Yeah.
Air.
He was also not bad in the Aretha Franklin movie Respect that came out a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like all the decisions that they made with when they used his character and when they didn't, but I thought that he was decent in that. But his comedy is just screeching
I just
and
think,
screaming and making stupid faces, and it's just not
yeah.
funny.
No, I'm with you. I don't think it's funny either. Like, I don't think it's a good movie. I will say it seems like we just don't have the taste for his comedy that other people might.
No. There are some movies that I'm like, hey, there's a lot of Adam Sandler movies that I'm just like, you know
I mean,
what?
Adam Sandler's
Not
funny,
for
but
me. Not the well, you know, if he
yeah,
had been hit by a school bus lately, I'm sure. But
okay.
uh, but there are a lot of movies like that that I'm like, hey, not my thing. If it's for you, it's for you. No, if you think this is funny, I really don't think you have like the wires aren't all connected. Like no,
Fair enough. I mean, I was
no,
just trying to give it some
this
positivity.
does not fall into the category of hey man, it's just not for me. If you think that this is funny, like if you think Marlon Wayans pretending to be a little baby who does nothing but just try to breastfeed Kerry Washington and every other woman in this movie aggressively as hell, and you think that that's funny, first of all, if you think that that's funny at all to start, we got
Yeah,
problems,
yeah,
but I can kind of maybe see it. But they do it 15 different times, and the
yeah.
joke never ends when it should. I
Well,
mean, you shouldn't be making that joke to begin with, but it's not. They do it for so long that even if you were
do
with
you,
it to begin with, you should not be with it by the time it concludes because they've been doing it for so long.
do you think the baby shooting like projectiles into the dad's crotch is an overplayed scene? Because it only happens like 5 times, and I was over it by like the second time it happened. I was like,
I was
okay,
over it
this
by the
isn't funny
time that they were like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do," and I'm like, "Oh, this is
with
the time where
this.
Dad
Yeah,
gets hit in the dick," and
physical
I'm like,
comedy at its best. Yeah.
oh, you're doing it again."
You want to
Oh,
see real physical
you're
comedy?
doing it again.
Watch
Watch
the
Jim
Ted.
Carrey.
Watch the Ted series on Peacock. That's physical comedy.
The Ted series on Peacock is so much better than it has any right to be. I think it's better than any of the Ted movies. And
Fair,
I know
yeah,
I'm not the
fair.
biggest flag waver for the Ted movies, but I mean that's like an A show for me. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed that
yeah.
show.
At least an A- for me.
And I know we're not
And
reviewing that, but just as
right,
far as
but
comedy goes, they have
uh,
jokes that are funny and end without you wanting to just like, okay, I get it, wrap it up.
yeah,
They're
I think
succinct
that's where I
jokes.
was getting with this. Is like this isn't a concise like comedy movie. It's kind of just all over the place, and then all of a sudden it kind of like wraps up at the very end, and it's just like, all right, so apparently like everyone's cool with like this this man just like deciding to be a baby. Like everything's okay. Like it's whatever. It's just like I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's just doesn't feel right. But whatever. I mean,
And the
it's a bad
way
movie. I mean, we can go ahead and grade it. I honestly want to stop talking about it. I want to stop talking about it because that's how bad the movie is. Like, to be honest with you.
I you thought that French Connection wrapped up, well, we both thought that French Connection wrapped up abruptly. The way
They
that this
slammed the
movie
wall. Just
the way that this movie ends, I don't even know if it's necessarily an abrupt ending. It's just like, so all of this happened and your reaction is this.
right.
This
It's
is
like,
your
oh,
reaction.
you're cool with it.
Oh, I wasn't even gonna spoil that. I was gonna wait till
No,
the
I mean,
end to
whatever.
talk
I
about
mean,
that,
who
but
cares? I mean,
it's
let's go ahead and put the disclaimer up, like spoiler.
yeah,
Like,
well,
let's just
yeah, no, I think you can guess what the grade's going to be, and we'll get to that here in a second. But yeah, the movie ends. They find out that he's not a baby, that he's in fact a little person, and Daryl, I guess that's his fucking name, Sean Wayans. He's just like,
I get
oh
it.
yeah, no, that's cool. You were a baby, or you weren't a baby. Ah man, I kind of enjoyed being a dad for a minute. Hey, do you want to go grab a beer and watch a basketball game? This
Yeah,
man
yeah.
pretended to be a baby. You cleaned his shit, stuck a thermometer in his ass, pooped with him in the bathtub. He watched you have sex with your wife. Apparently, there's a scene in this movie where it alludes to the fact that he might have raped your wife. They remember, because there's a scene where she's like, "Yeah, no, we did it twice in one night," and he's like, "Twice," and then it cuts to Marlon Wayans smiling in the bed next to her.
Oh God, I mean,
So,
just
and you're just like, no, the first response should be, first of all, I'm gonna throw you like a football across the damn street, and then I'm pressing charges.
yeah.
No,
I'm with
it's
you.
not. Hey
I'm with
man,
you. I'm with you.
you were a really cool son for a few days. Do you want to go get a beer? No, no, that's not the response. That's
Yeah.
no,
I
and
mean,
none of those jokes were funny.
I really don't have a lot. Like, you've hit everything on the head. Like, it's just, I mean, everything that you've said, it's just not a good movie. And like, yeah, it's not funny. And I'm sorry, it's just not funny. Like, that's just is what it is. Like,
But it's funny, Brandon.
it's just not. Like, I don't have much because like,
It's just not funny.
why did they make this movie? Why did someone allow
That's
them to
what I
make
was
this
gonna
movie?
say.
Like,
Why did the three brothers, why did these three brothers sit down and they're just like, you know, it'd be really cool if I directed a movie about a little person, but he pretended to be a baby to try to get away from the crime, and he was just like a pervert the whole time, and had things stuck up his ass, and had grown men farting in bathtubs with him. And Marlon and Sean didn't say like, "Get the fuck out, leave. We never want to see you again. That would
they
hurt our
were like, put
careers."
us in the movie.
No, they were like, "That's funny. I'll come up with a poop joke. I'll come up with a joke where I get to hit you in the dick, like, yeah, and I'll play the baby." Like, and none of them thought at any point that this was a
But
bad idea,
the studio,
and the studio released it
what?
because here's the thing: they were coming. Let's see, how well did White Chicks do? Because
It
that is a
had to
movie
do
that
well because that is
is.
a good movie. That is a good movie. I
I've
will
never
die on that
seen
hill.
White
I
Chicks.
will die on that hill. It is a
$37 million
good movie.
dollars. It's got a $37 million budget. It made 113, and it probably did very well on the rentals and the DVD sales and all of that as well. So I'm sure that they made money.
Now, the
It
critics
has a
do not like
fifteen
that movie.
percent on Rotten Tomatoes.
When
So
I
the
say
critics did not like it at all.
White Chicks is a good movie, I don't mean like critically like great for movie making. Like, it's funny in that it's so bad it's funny, but like I think they lean into that. They know it's bad and they don't care. Um, it's got 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not out here saying that White Chicks is like the next coming of comedy. Like, that is not what I'm saying.
But
But they
Little Man
know
has
it
a
is a bad
12.
movie.
Even as someone who has not seen White Chicks, I can guarantee you that
It
White
won't be
Chicks is at
lower
least
than
3% better than this.
right, right. And that, I guess, is my point. Is coming off of White Chicks, where they kind of leaned into it being bad. Who decided, like, yes, this is the next project. Like, this is what we should do.
This
Because
is good for our
I hope,
careers.
yeah, I mean,
Let's give it a summer release right after the biggest movie of the year.
yeah, that's that too. Like, release it in January if it's really that bad. If like,
Yeah, this movie belongs in January.
clearly they thought it was like somewhat, it was gonna do well. Like, they had to have. Like, if this movie had been released in January, I guarantee you it gets to 22 million. Guarantee it. Guarantee the first weekend box office it's 30 million. because there's
It's
nothing in
probably better
January.
if it's not going up against
There's
Pirates of
nothing
the
in
Caribbean and
January.
Devil Wears Prada and all that
Like,
stuff and Superman Returns.
if I'm a movie goer in 2006, I am not turning to my dad and going, I liked White Chicks. Let's go see Little Man. Like,
And it
I just
opened.
wouldn't. Like,
Hold on. Let me see what it opened
yeah,
against.
look this up because this is the history that just confounds me
It
sometimes.
opened on the same weekend as another comedy. It opened on the same weekend as You, Me, and Dupree, which is also, again, on the list. And that one opened lower and isn't very highly regarded, but it legged out a lot better. It ended up making
Yeah,
75 million, whereas Little Man ended up making in the 50s, 58, despite the fact that they opened really close. Little Man made 21.6, You Mean Dupree made 21.5. So that's about as
you
close as
know,
it gets.
the wild thing is the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes: 50% for You, Me, and Dupree, 55% for Little Man. So
Again, haven't seen You, Me, and Dupree, but I guarantee you it is better than Little Man. And maybe I see You, Me, Dupree, and I'm like, oh man, wrong, wrong. This is one of the worst movies of all time. But
yeah,
I, I just,
I'll die. I'll die on the hill that White Chicks is like a bad good movie though.
all
Like
right.
one of those, like a C, D plus range, but you have a
That's
good
not a
time
good
with
movie,
it.
Brandon.
Oh, I don't know how to
But you
say
have
it.
a good time with it. I get that.
Like C and you have a good time. Like it's an average movie and it's like it makes you laugh. Like this one, no qualities like that whatsoever.
Let's give our grades, and then I'll tell you how this thing did at the Golden Raspberry Awards.
Oh, a little Raz. Yeah, I'll go
The
ahead and give my grade.
raspberries.
I'm gonna go F, and I just want to compare this to what I had last year.
Wait, hold on. You said F, right?
Yeah.
Uh, 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 That's our
What?
F sound effect.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice. Um, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 20.0 F.
Okay, right on the knot. 20.0. All
And
evens all the way
I'll
around.
let you know that comes in as my fourth worst movie of the year last year.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna give Little Man an A plus. No, I'm just kidding. Not even a little bit. Yeah, Little Man gets an F, and that is an F of 12.67%
Okay. Yeah.
for me. This would have been my number 2 worst movie of last year,
Yeah,
only
would have
with
made sense.
Expendables beating it out. Of course, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey
And
being
then the
my number
movie Zero.
0
Yeah,
worst movie
movie
of the year.
Zero. Yeah.
But Little Man would have been number 2, and any respectable year,
Do
this
you
would
want to
be a
guess the movies that would have been ahead of Little Man, but not expendable for our
from. Well, first of all,
Winnie
you
the
never
Pooh,
saw
Blood and Honey?
Expendables, right?
I did not see Expendables.
So
So do you want
2023.
to guess 2023 movies? You didn't see these. These are
Yeah,
random
that's
movies you
that's the
didn't
thing.
see.
Well, no one
And
saw
that's
the movies that
no
you
one
put at the
saw
very
them.
bottom.
But that's how bad this movie is. That's what I'm kind of getting at.
Okay, I'm guessing that it was better or worse than Freelance.
Uh, yes, definitely worse
What
than
about War
Freelance.
of the Worlds Attack? I'm going to
It's
say that it
actually
was.
below that.
Wow. Wow, when you're below straight to smart fridge movies, that's a problem.
So the
Um
movies, yeah. Do you just want me to go ahead?
no, there was one. Okay, Down on the Strip,
Yeah, Back at the Strip was
Back at
Back
the
on the
Strip,
Strip. Back on the
Back on the
Strip
Strip, and then there was
is
another
below it.
one about what is it? The mess we make or something
The
like that.
Price We Pay,
The price we
another a
pay.
horror movie I saw on Peacock. That was
That was worse.
yeah. So Back on the Strip, 19 and a half. So this one just clears that bar. And then The Price We Pay, 14.2 on my new
Ugh.
scale. Yeah, not great. But my point is that Mitchell's grade is lower than The Price We Pay. So maybe, just maybe, this movie is just absolutely horrible and would be in the bottom 5 of any movie year in the history of movies. And I think that is what sums it up the best.
However, it does not get an F minus for me because F
So
minus
F
means you're in the
minus
F
is
minus means you're in the single digits of the Fs, and this
yeah. F
Did no,
minus is what Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey
this came
was.
close.
Oh,
It was
close.
flirting with it. If that last scene
Okay.
with them talking about like, yeah, you want to go to the sports bar and eat some wings and drink some beer, if that had gone on for longer, this might have gotten an F minus. But that scene kind of was a little brief, so
So,
they started by with a low, 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 low F.
yeah, I don't even know if you would have like Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey on your scale, but for me, it's a 1.5% F. So an F minus.
I
Only
didn't
F
bother
minus of the year
scaling
last
it.
year. Yeah, fair.
No.
Don't bother scaling it. But yeah.
All
So
right.
that's
You want to
my
know about the
thoughts on it.
Razzies for this?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All
Hit it.
right. So, who do you think won for worst actor, Marlon Wayans or Sean Wayans?
Probably Sean Wayne's, but Marlon Wayne's wouldn't be far behind.
So, what's your official guess?
I'm gonna go Sean, but
You know
Marlon
what?
probably close.
The right answer is they both won. They gave it to
They
both of them.
gave it to both of them.
they, they gave it to Marlon and Sean for worst actor. They just gave it to both of them. I most of the time I think that's a cop out, but in this
No,
instance,
I think that is
I've
well
got no
deserved.
problem with
Well
that.
deserved.
Yeah.
Do you think people make movies to like win Razzies?
I don't know, but this one seems like it was made off of a bet while drunk. It lost Worst Picture to Basic Instinct 2.
They made a
On the
second
list,
one. No, I'm just kidding.
on the list. Um, the other nominees were Blood Rain, Lady in the Water, and the that was an M Night Shyamalan movie that I've never seen, but I've heard horrible things about, and the infamous Nicolas Cage remake of The Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man remake. Yes,
And
yes.
yes, to all of you wondering, it may be years, it may be decades, but yes, Brandon, all of those movies are on the
On the
list.
list. Yes.
So perhaps we will get to them. This movie also had the honor of winning worst screen couple, which is
That's offensive. That's offensive to Vanessa.
well,
That's
it's
offensive.
Sean Wayans. I love this. This movie basically says that Sean Wayans is the worst actor. It says Sean Wayans and either Kerry Washington or Marlon Wayans, but they also have some. They do some weird things with worst screen couple. Like for example, one of them is Nicolas Cage in his bear suit
That's pretty
in The
funny,
Wicker Man. That's not a
actually.
couple. Sharon Stone's lopsided breasts in Basic Instinct 2. That's just mean.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a mean one.
but this also won.
That's rude to Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington actually wasn't that bad in this movie.
Oh no, I thought
That's
this was
very
no, I
rude.
thought she was bad, but she's just
I mean,
been good in other things. Her agent needs to
she
be
can clearly
kicked
act.
into a volcano for recommending this to her. But this was actually this one worst remake or ripoff. And you might
Uh,
think, what in the hell did this rip off? This was
Wicker
actually
Man had to have won that, right?
no, Little Man beat the Pink Panther, Poseidon, the Shaggy Dog, and the Wicker Man.
Pink Panther was in that
Yeah, but
category.
do you know why it won?
What is it
Because
ripping off?
it was a ripoff of a 1954 Bugs Bunny cartoon, Baby Buggy Bunny, which is apparently uh,
Probably funny.
a very famous Bugs Bunny cartoon about a short gangster by the name of Babyface Finster.
Oh my
Who,
gosh, yes, I think I know what you're talking about now. Now I think
yeah,
about it. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
and after a bank robbery, he has to disguise himself
As a baby.
as as an orphan baby to I think it's a very similar situation
There's
where
no way.
it's a
There's no
bag of money
way
or
it's
something
like a
like that.
rip off. I mean, I guess it's a, but there's no way that Marlon Wayne, Sean Wayne's, and
I'm
he.
reading this
There's
and
no
maybe
way
I
they
should have
did.
watched it because the short's only 7 minutes. I just don't know where to find it. But
Max probably with Bugs
it
Bunny.
I'm reading this and it looks very similar. He even has a tattoo.
Oh,
It
okay.
looks
So
very,
you think?
very
Do
similar.
you think the Wayans were so drunk one night that they were just like, you see that
Watching Looney
cartoon?
Tunes.
Yeah, they were just like, you see that cartoon? Let's make that. and they just went for it. I personally think people try to win Razzies. I think they try to win Razzies.
I I like to think that after making White Chicks and having people like you, or
Think
I
it's a
think like
bad good
I feel
movie.
like most
I think
general
most people think that's a
audiences,
bad good movie. Yeah.
yeah, most people can at least have fun with it. You try to make something like that, and I think that they tried to lean into it and just lost all sense of what was funny, what was good taste, and they
Hmm.
just saw, what if we go so ridiculous? It'll be like White Chicks, but even more extreme.
And it just doesn't work.
And
Yeah.
they just completely lost themselves in this. And
Well, look, if I ever get nominated for a Razzie, I hope I win.
yeah, well,
I'm kind of
Sean,
like hoping for it.
Sean and Marlon did it. They won together. The Keenan Ivory Wayans
they
did not
they
win
did
Best
it.
or Worst Director because M. Night Shyamalan won that for Lady in the Water.
M. Night Shyamalan.
And worst screenplay
Come
went
on,
to Basic Instinct 2.
interesting. So spoilers for the French Connection. Are I mean, we kind of
Yeah,
already spoiled it a
this
little bit,
this won't
right?
be a too terribly long. The only thing I really have to talk about is whenever Popeye would shoot somebody, it seemed kind of like the makeup wasn't quite up to par. It seemed very fake to me. Where a few
How'd
times,
you
and
feel
maybe this
about the
was just,
sniper scene? The sniper scene was kind of cool.
yeah, no, I thought that was cool too. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of the action scenes were fantastic. I liked the scene where this was like the one detective work scene that I liked was when they noticed that, hey, there's nothing in here, but he's like, no, the car is overweight. There's clearly something in here. Let's find out what it is. And then they are able to find the heroin in there. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, but the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about was just the fact that there's this chase. They're in a warehouse, and
There's a couple of shots, rounds traded back and forth.
yeah,
What like bang bang back at him, bang bang from the criminals.
Popeye accidentally kills one of the FBI agents. Um,
Yeah, that one was a little
because
wild.
yeah, um, and then you just kind of are meant to assume at a point that Popeye shoots one of the bad guys. You don't really see it, and then we get title cards, and we get what happens to people, and that's how
Right.
we find out that Popeye was like fine, and they were just transferred out of the division and reassigned, and it's just a
And
very
he's like walking
anticlimactic way to the ending.
right. He's like walking through the warehouse like after the fact, like after
Yeah,
they arrest them all. It just ends. It's just like okay. Like could we not expand on him accidentally killing the FBI agent? Can we not expand on like just a little bit more of a firefight? Just a little bit more of a back and forth. It kind of was like a quick back and forth. One person died, and the criminals like put their hands up, like, oh, "Okay, we're done." Oh,
yeah, it just kind of seemed like they didn't know how to take the ending. Maybe
yeah,
the ending of the book is just wild and they didn't want to do all that, or maybe the book ends just as suddenly. I don't know. But it was
maybe yeah,
very, it seemed so rushed.
it did.
Like
Um,
they only had a set amount of film
I was gonna
for
say,
we're already so much over budget. We've shot all that we can wrap this up in a
right.
prologue, right? Let's do that. Okay.
The only thing I can think of is maybe, and
Or epilogue.
I haven't seen his other work as the director. Maybe the director of Friedrichsen just doesn't know how to
Friedkin.
Freakin just doesn't know how to end movies like Spike Lee. He just doesn't know how to end them. Maybe that's what it is.
I will again. He's got The Exorcist, which on the list. I've never seen The Exorcist, so I
You didn't like
will.
The Exorcist Believer though, which
No, that movie was terrible. That movie was
but
terrible.
I've heard I haven't seen The Exorcist Evil either, but I've heard very good movie. Like I've heard like
Oh yeah,
that
no, I've
is
heard it's
that
one of
is
the
a
greatest horror
turning
movies of all
point.
time.
Yeah, that is a turning point in horror. people were like, this is like what you need to watch if you're gonna watch horror.
But as
So
far as he's
yeah, I don't
got
know.
Sorcerer, The Exorcist, To Live and Die in L.A., Rules of Engagement, and Killer Joe are
Oh,
the
okay.
movies of his that are on the list.
Rules of Engagement seems like it would be fun. I haven't seen that either, but it seems like it'd be a fun movie.
That is a legal war movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson that came out in 2000. So
Yeah,
maybe we'll get to well, it's on the list.
it's on the list.
So the list can be cruel sometimes. You know,
It's okay.
you
I
just
mean, it's okay. I mean, we got a B plus and we got an F out of this. If we
yeah.
had gotten two Fs, I would have been like, okay, Mitchell, maybe we should have, like shuffled the randomizer a little bit more. But I'll live with a B plus and an F. I'll live with it.
Yeah, there's let's just give a little bit of a before we sign off for the night, what people can expect moving forward. So our next one is going to be we're not getting any F's out of this. Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump.
Those might be
That's
A plus, like high A plus.
and we're gonna end that one with all due respect to Four Weddings and a Funeral and Quiz Show, which again on the list, and I've heard very good things about both of those. We are going to make our determination for who we think should have won the Oscar for Best Picture in 1994, whether it was Shawshank, Pulp Fiction, or Forrest Gump,
Fair enough.
after that podcast. And then we're going to have the January movie recap, where we talk about such movies like Mean Girls and The Beekeeper, which is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Night Swim, The Book of Clarence, and some of the Oscar holdovers that didn't come out until January, stuff like Zone of Interest, Society of the Snow, Origin,
American
anything.
fiction.
Did you say Pulp Fiction?
American fiction.
Oh,
But
that's a good. I was gonna say Pulp Fiction came out
Pulp
not recently.
Fiction.
But we are talking about that, just not in that
Oh, no.
podcast.
Yes.
And then in February, Brandon, February, of course, the randomizer is adjusted so that the movies we're talking about are romance movies.
Romance.
So our first two podcasts in the month of February, the first one, and this might not be the first one we do in February. The first one in February might be the January recap, but the first one
Give it to me.
is the Patrick Swayze movie Ghost that came out in 1990.
With the pottery scene. The pottery.
Yeah, with
scene?
the pottery scene. I've never seen the movie, but I know about that. And then in 2013, right after Twilight came out, there was a that young adult craze, and we got a movie by the name of Warm Bodies out of that. That was a minor hit and actually got some pretty good reviews. So I will have to. I have seen that one. I will keep my thoughts on it mum until we get to the review, but maybe my opinion has changed. And then after that, we'll make our 1999 determination for Best Picture, whether it should have been The Green Mile or The Sixth Sense and American Beauty. So that's what we have coming down the pipe.
That's great. Because personally, I don't think it's gonna be a tough choice between Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and Shawshank. But we're here. We're here to provide an opinion. So
yeah, and please make sure to let us know on Twitter at Mitchell Lee 10 or at Press Play Action. If you think that our opinion is absolutely correct and you agree with us, then that's where you go. And if you think our opinion is terribly wrong, you can find Brandon at Brandon TEWEETS. And any negative
you're a terrible person.
Any negative feedback that you have can be sent directly towards that.
I wasn't even that negative about Lil Man. You're the one who was negative about.
I'm told that he accepts DMs directly, and he really appreciates that. So
no, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, I'm fine. I'll answer DMs,
especially with people that disagree about his opinions of Korean baseball as well as his opinions of Little Man. Then you really want to hit him up,
right? Yeah, if you got both of those, hit me up. But yeah, I mean, just is what it is. We'll see with Little Man. That's just. Whew.
What's funny is
I hope we don't have a bad movie coming down the pipeline, but can't say that because we know there's
we know, but we're not telling people
in the
just yet. But we know that there's something something wicked this way comes, and part of me can't wait for it. But then I also know I have to sit down and watch those movies, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. But that's for another time. Just me and you this time around. It was tough to get anyone else to want to join when we're talking about Little Man. That doesn't exactly make people want to jump up and, hey, yeah, I'll put myself through that on my own free will. Yeah, I'll watch Little Man. That's not really a thing that you're going to get a lot of people to do. So, Brandon, thanks for being a sicko like me, being willing to watch this stuff.
Yeah, man, no
I
problem.
appreciate it. I have a good time. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week when we have that Pulp Fiction Forrest Gump content for you.